Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to welcome all of you who braved the elements. Last I checked, it was like about 30 degrees. It's still a heck of a lot better than last week. And a week ago this time, there was up to 24 inches of snow on the ground here in Monmouth County. But I want to thank all of you who came here to see the historic St. James Church. We called the historic church. It was known as the Church of the President at one point. As a matter of fact, the first two pews here, one sat James Garfield and Woodrow Wilson of all people. But enough about the historic nature of the church itself. It's an incredible space to just visually take in. But you'll be seeing portions of it as our speakers speak today. Today's show is entitled An Afternoon of the Spoken Word for the works of Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas himself is quite an amazing character. He's rather precocious, especially in writing and with words, and graduated early from what would be the equivalent of high school in our time. He was a bit alienated as a result of that time, of being in school and being quite ahead of them, especially in the area of vocabulary and writing, being creative. Some of his first poems, one of which you'll hear today, was in 1811. And you can already see that there was quite a proclivity for his ability to be able to use advanced metaphor, alliteration, inline rhyming. He was rather clever. He's also unique in several other aspects as well. He was really a link between he kind of grew up between the wars, World War I and World War II. World War I usually marks the end of literature standpoint, and the modern era, which started roughly around World War II and beyond. What you'll find much about his work is that it contains many metaphors, which are often very abstract, taken line by line, but constructed in such a way to really tie themes together. And we think you'll hear some of that today during today's performance reviews. Little housekeeping before we get underway. We are doing this live via Zoom. We'll try to admit you as best as we can. Automatic add. We have about roughly 15 people online. We have probably here in the church. So a little bit of housekeeping just for the people in the church for your safety. The front door is obviously a form of egress to come in and out of. Immediately through that hallway and to your left is another door. There are crash bars in case there's any emergency. You're not far from an exit. Okay. If we are going to have a short intermission, that'll be about 10 minutes long, not too long. If you need to use or need to get up at any time, no insult to us if you do, of course, unless it's really just that bad. Just walk out and just yeah. Anyway, feel comfortable and just get up. There's a set of bathrooms down the hallway past the stairs. They're marked as men and women, wherever you're comfortable. So, a little bit more about Dylan Thomas. He did not live very long. He died at the age of 39. He had contracted double pneumonia after one of his many drinking jackets, where literally he just drank himself delirious every day. And it's a reputation that he kind of, let's just say he cultivated, because it just made him seem risky and dangerous, unpredictable. And that added a lot to his ability to actually make money from reading his poems. He was a bad boy of poetry. And for some reason, people dug it. So, something to think about. He was not, there's another old line about poets. There are no such thing as rich poets. There was only one, and that was Shelley, and that was simply because he inherited all of his money. But there are no rich poets, neither was he. He had published, I think there were 11 official versions that were published of his works. He got some royalty, but publishers publishing poetry, they take big risks. even if they know that there's an audience out there for it. So he really made his money by actually performing his pieces. So it's actually quite remarkable that this is the first time after doing spoken word events for years. I've done them with dead poets who never actually had their works recorded. His was different. And if after hearing some of it today, it's worth hearing again. Hear him say it. Also in I believe it was in 1959 or 60, that Richard Burton had done collections of his work. That is worthwhile to hear as well. Very, very good stuff to hear. Anyway, we hope you enjoy the program. I want to tell you a little bit about this and why Dylan Thomas was one of my favorites. Something I just found out recently. When my father passed on, I received this book that said Collected Poems of Thomas. You know, I've already been kind of a boy fan, so to speak, of his work, but I never had a book, so I was glad to get this. Recently, when I started to put this program together and looking at the selections, I was going to figure, well, gee, when was this actually published? It showed in the frontispiece, and the book just seemed a little different, and I wasn't quite sure. It's called the New Edition Publishing Company, and I started looking up New Edition Publishing Company. Nothing in America, nothing that had been acquired by another publisher. What I eventually figured out was that this wasn't really fun. This was my grandfather's book. My grandfather came from Northamptonshire, England, which is on it's not quite Wales. It's on the eastern border of Wales. It's near Whittington, which is known for its amusement park. But anyway, he was very well exposed during his lifetime, and they were contemporaries to some extent. My grandfather would have only been just a few years older than me. So I'm just only speculating and wondering now, knowing that this came from England, my grandfather's collection, and wondering if they ever heard each other. Anyway, as our objective is always with these spoken word events, Walt Whitman and A Year of the Woman, Emily Dickinson. That was a lot of fun. Who else have we done? We did Edgar Allan Poe this past fall. I think that cooperation with the Long Branch Library. We've done a number of different venues, the Navy State Art Center, the Long Branch Public Library. Anyway, I'm going to welcome our first performance reader, Marshall Hart. If you have any questions or thoughts, or you're just wondering about who these performance readers are, there's a short bio in the program. I apologize for the small print. It was really hard to try to get everyone in and still make it. So if anybody had trouble reading it, I'll take my glasses off and read it for you. Anyway, enjoy the afternoon. Thank you. I'm not Richard Burton. My name is Marshall Hart, and I just want to, I'm going to read first of all, but I want to say a little bit about how I see it fitting into this program. It's called the Author's Prologue, and I would assume that Robert has selected this because it's going to be the first piece. But I think it's really interesting that there's an Author's Prologue. As far as I'm concerned, Dylan Thomas's creed writes very existential poetry. So there's a prologue and there's going to be an epilogue. And I've been given the gift by Robert to read the first poem today and the last. So I will do the epilogue. The author's prologue is written in a very interesting way. The chiasmus. And what a chiasmus involves is that the words, or in this case, the rhyme, is repeated, but not in a way that you're going to recognize it. Right? This is a very long poem, so I hope you're able to tolerate it. It's 102 lines long, but the rhyme is difficult to notice because in a chiasmus, it's the first line that rhymes to the line 102, and line 2 rhymes to 101.
place where you'll see the actual line appear to you as close as it can be is in lines 51-2. Sheep, white, hollow farms, to whales in my arms. And that's going to be right into Dylan Thomas had an obsession with life and death, and between the comings and the goings, because we're in a church, which is a prison, his attention to comings and goings seems very apropos. But in between there is an interlude, and that interlude is the place where Dylan Thomas, in this particular poem, does the following thing. The second line is that God speeded summer's end, and the next to the last line is that God speeded summer's end. But in the interlude, he dramatically describes all of life that he was able to observe, and he sort of has a conversation with you. And finally, I just want to tell you a personal reason why I enjoy this poem is there's a passage in there where he speaks of rainbows. And I did my PhD dissertation on rainbows, so there's a personal connection. Author's prologue. This day winding down now, and God speeded summer's end in the torrent salmon sun, in my sea-shaken house, on a breakneck of rocks, tangled with chub and fruit, froth, flute, fin, and quill, and a wood's dancing hoop, by scum, starfish sands, with their fishwife cross gulls, pipers, cockles, and snails. Out there, crow-black men tackled with clouds, who kneel to the sunset nymphs. Geese nearly in heaven, boys ecstatic, and herons and shells that speak seven seas. Eternal waters away from the cities of 9 days' night, whose towers will catch in the religious wind like stalks of tall, dry straw. At poor peace I sing to you, strangers, whose song is a burning, crested act, the fire of birds in the world's turning wood, for my swan splayed sounds. Out of these sea-flung leaves that will fly and fall, like leaves of trees, and as soon crumble and undone into the dog-day night. Seaward, the salmon sucked sun slips, and the dumb swans grow blue like dark day's dusk, as I hack this rumpus of shapes, for you to know how I, aspiring man, glory also this star, bird-born, sea-born, man-torn, blood-blessed. Hark, I trumpet the place, from fish to jump the hill. Look, I build my bellowing ark to the best of my love, as the flood begins out of the fountainhead of fear, rage red, man alive, molten and mountainous, to stream over the wound asleep, sheep, white, hollow farms, to whales in my arms. Who there in Castle Keep, you king sing-song owls, who moonbeam the flickering runs and die the dingled bird deer dead? Halloo, my plum grins, oh, my ruffled ringdove, in the hooting, nearly dark, with Welsh and reverent whoop. Who rooting the woods praise, who moons her blue notes from her nest down to the curlew. Ho, ho, ballooning clan, agape with woe in your beaks on the gathered case. High on horseback hill, Jack whisking hare, who hears there this foxlight, my blood's ship's clangor as I hew and smite a clash of anvils for my hubbub and fiddle, this tune on an autumnal wall. But animals, fit as thieves on God's rough tumbling grounds, hail to his beasthood. Beasts who sleep good and thin, Heisted hogback woods, the haystack, hollow farms in a throng of waters cluck and cling, and barn roofs cockcrow war. O kingdom of neighbors thin, felled and quilled, flash to my patchwork art, in the moonshine drinking Noah of the bay, with pelt and scale and fleece, only the drowned deep bells of sheep and churches noise. Poor peace as the sun sets, and dark shoals every home view. We will ride out alone then, under the stars of Wales, cry multitudes of arcs across the water-lidded lands. Manned with their loves, they'll move like wooden islands, hill to hill. Halloo, my proud dove with a flute, ahoy, old sea-legged fox, tom-tit and die-mouse, my ark sings in the sun, at God-speeded summer's end, and the flood flowers now.
A little coordination here. Yep. Zoom I can let you by. There you go.
Stagecraft at its best.
Performers as cameramen. Welcome. You're probably going to see a little bit more of me today than we normally do for our performance reader. A couple of us are playing understudy. Speaking of some of the pieces again, the poem that I'm going to be reading is called Refusal to Mourn the Death by a Child. It's a very title, somewhat impactful as well. You know, war as we knew it in the 20th century, our perception of it has really changed. We didn't really understand how ugly war was until the 1960s. The U.S. was involved in the Vietnam War. And so when we had the war not just in the newspapers, but the ugliness of the war right in our face, and what an overall impact had on our perspective, understanding of conflict. For World War I, Dylan Thomas was too young to some of the abstract elements of war. But by the time he was in his late 20s, World War II started. George had created a campaign to quickly bring England to its knees. And during the Blitzkrieg, he didn't go after just military targets. As a matter of fact, the entire strategy was to bomb civilian areas and to scare the hell out of the British and bring them to a point of despair. He made a strategic blunder there because it was horrible. It was unbearable for some, but it just sealed the resolve that they were going to make. Dylan Thomas, even as a young man, understood the difference. He could either choose to despair, or he could become a little bit more stoic in understanding about what was happening and where he would deal with this. And he did it by denying the despair, and it comes across in refusal to mourn the death of my fire, a child in London. Never until the mankind making earth, beast, and flower, and all darkness. Tells the silence of last light breaking in the still hour, and come of sea tumbling down on it. And I must enter again around Zion of the war be, and the synagogue of the ears corn. Shall I pray in the shadow of the sound, or sow my salt seed in the least valley of sackcloth and mourn? The majesty and burning of the child's death I shall not murder. The mankind of foregoing with a grave truth, nor blaspheme down the stations of the breath with any further elegy of innocence and youth. Deep with the first dead lies London's daughter, robed in long friends, the greens beyond age, the dark veins of her mother, secret by the unmourning water of the Thames. After the first death, there is no other. Refusal to mourn the death by fire, child in London.
Thank you. You're welcome.
My name is James Dalton. I'm very excited. I'm not even sure if it's going to do the words. It's such a melancholy work we're all celebrating today. The next poem that's on the list is Clown and Moon. It's on the shorter side, but what attracts me to it is the complexity of the feelings that I feel like the narrator is going for. I mean, it's melancholy, which I think is one of my favorite words. But I also feel like there's a person speaking of guilt, fear. I feel like the person is stands away. I feel like they're the clown on the moon. They're far from the earth. And they're even so far away that they're even afraid to touch it, but they might fall. And maybe the damage that they cause. So this is clown on the moon. My tears are like the quiet drift of petals from some magic river, and all my grief flows from the rift of unremembered skies and snows. I think that if I touched the earth, it would crumble. It is so sad and beautiful, so tremulously like a dream.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene, and this is Ella. And we have the privilege of reciting Song of the Mischievous Dog. And then when I scanned the list and saw this poem, it was starkly different from the others, the way it was silly and sweet and cute. And it immediately occurred to me that I might get Ella to say yes to participate with it. As I researched a little bit more, I learned that it was written when Dylan Thomas was 11 years old, and Ella here is 11. So I was on a mission, and we're very pleased to be here today to share with you Song of the Mischievous Dog by Dylan Thomas. There are many who say that a dog has its day, and a cat has a number of lives. There are others who think that a lobster is pink, and that bees never work in their hives. fewer, of course, who insist that a horse has grown into humps on its head. And a fellow who jests that mare can build nests is as rare as a donkey is rare. Yet, in spite of all this, I have moments of bliss where I cherish a passion for both. And though doubtful, risky, willing to risk it. And I love to chase rabbits and stones. But my greatest delight is to take a good bite at a calf that is plump and delicious. And if I indulge in a bite at a bulge, let's hope you don't think me too vicious.
Well done. Well done. Bravo.
Isn't it? I'm doing Norway as a light. The kids are going to now as the persona Jesus is fitting for us. And he's reflecting on his mortal life with not a little incredulity and perhaps some righteous indignation. So we have for you before I knocked. Before I knocked, and flesh that enter, with liquid hands tapped on the womb, I, who was as shapeless as the water that shaped the Jordan near my home, was brother to Metha's daughter, and sister to the fathering worm. I, who was deaf to spring and summer, who knew not sun nor moon by name, felt thud beneath my flesh's arm. As yet was in a molten form, the leaden stars, the rainy hammer, swung by my father from his dome. I knew the message of the winter, the darted hail, the childish snow, and the wind was my sister suitor. Wind in me leaped the hellborn dew. My veins flowed with the eastern weather. Ungotten, I knew night and day. As yet ungotten, I did suffer. The rack of dreams my lily bones did twist into a living cipher, and flesh was snipped to cross the lines of gallows crosses on the liver and brambles in the ringing brain. My throat knew thirst before the structure of skin and vein around the well, where words and water make a mixture unfailing till the blood runs out. My heart knew love. My belly hunger. I smelt the maggot in my stool. And time passed forth my mortal creature to drift or drown upon the seas, acquainted with the salt adventure of tides that never touch the shores. I, who was rich, was made the richer by sipping at the vine of days. I, born of flesh and ghost, was neither a ghost nor man, but mortal ghost. And I was struck down by death's feather. I was immortal to the last long breath that carried to my Father the message of his dying Christ. You who bow down at cross and altar, remember me and pity him who took my flesh and bone for armor, and double-crossed my mother's womb.
Well done. Really well done. Thank you. That was beautiful to me. We're coming to the end of the first act. And the piece that we chose for that was a piece entitled "Death Shall Have No Dominion." It's actually one of the better known pieces, but I'm not sure if many people understand the construction that went into it. As I said, Thomas was a link between that romantic period and the modernist. You'll find some familiarity in some of the lines. He actually borrowed quite heavily, such as Coleridge and Wordsworth and such. It was really, if anything, it was more of an exercise in homage to the romantic period and romantic literature. So there's much to enjoy here, although I think when we're used melancholy. There's a lot of that here as well. The title itself actually comes from a line in the New Testament, in the book of Romans. And death shall have no dominion. Now, when Paul wrote that letter to the Romans, he meant something a little bit different from what Romans. But it's quite profound how he marries it to the metaphors found in this piece. At the end of this piece, when we have an intermission, if you'd like to get up, look around the church, questions about the church. There's the bathroom, and such, just let me know. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. It's a short one, so we'll be done in a moment. And death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be wrung, man in the breast womb. When their dumb bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars like elbow foot. And though they go mad, they shall be saved. And though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. Under the winding of the sea, they lie watch, let thy window, twisting on rocks when sinews give way. Strapped to a wheel, they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall slam them to, and beauty run them through. Let all in that place shall crack, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. No more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashores, where blew a flower no more. Lift its head to the blows of the rain, and though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies and break through the sun until the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion. Just unwind and go back. We would like to speak to any of the performers leaders. We can do so. We're going to have everyone be back at places in 10 minutes, and we'll start. Thank you.
That's all right.
Watching. Had a series called Emily. It was Emily Dickinson, and it was done in a way that it was all the costumes, all the settings, that kind of stuff. But the music and the language was all contemporary, and each episode was basically about home. You know, and so that would be like around the home and stuff like that. And yes, the idea even though it was her home. So how was your day back at the?
This woman. Still with mask.
Yeah, of course.
It's the whole thing is very good.
Stay in there.
I'm getting excited. September 28th.
Is Diane the person?
She's been much. She sees twice a day.
She's basically the work.
Yeah.
No, I like it for some. No. What's up, Netflix? Designated survivor. Okay, just good.
Oh.
Somewhere else.
Or maybe a piece of it. Maybe we didn't see the whole yet.
Sometimes we say something good.
Oh, we love him. Which one? Afterlife. We did, but we got into the other one.
Yes. It
One
was
about
fabulous.
the home.
He was in the-
Oh, where he goes to see his father? Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, that was hysterical.
No, that's it.
Oh, no. This was,
It works. And
he's
it'll,
like a party. There's special. He works,
Yes.
and he works in the nurse. And he's just very simple, you know, and it's all the antics that go around and stuff like this. He's a very, very
he's
funny
a
guy.
good person.
Yeah, he's a real good
Yesterday
person.
we watched his. And then we watched a movie that he did. Special Correspondence. He and Sky they work for a radio station. He's supposed to go to Ecuador, ocean, and they used to play stories.
Right.
He is very direct back. Deals with them.
Yeah. I think it was for the first season.
His wife dies.
Right, exactly.
Goes to his adventures.
Have to get back. I know you like the other one. I think was
Oh, the other one was
funnier.
No, it's just.
There was another movie that where people couldn't lie, and so he told a lie, and he becomes like God, and it's like a whole thing on religions. That was cool.
Yeah.
And he did The Office.
Yeah, I never watched the Office.
Very fun. I've only watched the I only did like the first few ones. But also,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you just leave it on and I start watching.
So I'm gonna text.
Yes, he's a Thursday week work. Usually don't practice after that. And I'm not expecting you guys to go out this then because I'll say it's a redneck, tightly.
Well, we're also, we want to go into hibernation.
Oh, right.
Just so
There
you
you
know,
go.
don't take it the wrong
No,
way.
no, please, I don't think I don't think you can enjoy it up there anyway. Last time we had a problem because we started chanting, let's go play. At least it was late. You have Hulu?
No, we have Amazon Prime. And we have Netflix. We cheat.
Oh, do you really? Yeah. You would have rolled.
What kind of show?
Derek.
Oh, Derek. So we're talking about Thursday the 10th or the 24th.
Then we like Idiot Abroad. That was into not in it, but it's his show. It's basically this guy, very young, he's English, and he just likes to stay home, just do nothing. And so what this is, they send him on vacation to make these things that take him out of his comfort zone. Derek is very
Not to make it next.
right.
No.
Are you watching the last episode?
No, we never.
Oh, you never got it.
We watched 6 years.
Yeah, I didn't. I wish I would have. Yes.
Yes.
Good.
We're gonna take place,
Okay. This is why you like the record.
whatever I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you on the first go ahead. Yes.
Let's sing.
Let's take a look. Somebody for Tara. Sal's gonna be doing the first two pieces. Then it's me. So after Sal will be me, and then it'll be James.
Well, do you want, can you leave it like that? The way it is now?
I think so. I was getting a little bit closer by putting it up here. Maybe I can adjust it so it'll go on top of the first one. Okay, I think we're good. Well, welcome back to our intermission. I wasn't here. It's the first time in church. One of the neat things that's not happening is that the southern sun will start shining through the stained glass, colored stained glass window. And I can't really show you so much with the camera, I'll show up as well. You'll see these kaleidoscopes of colors coming through the stained glass windows. And right now they're on the pipeboard. It's just an unusual thing you don't see. But it creates a little magic in this space. So thank you again for all coming, and those of you who are streaming this online. I appreciate you being patient with us. Sound problem in the beginning. But again, thank you for those who agree the elements to come on out and see the program. We're going to be starting out with associate of mine, my nephew, poetry. Now, Rosie, pretty talented poet himself, and has participated in a number of spoken word events. He'll lead us off with two pieces. First, poem October, and on my selling, on my song,
Craft and song.
on my what?
Craft and song.
On my craft and song art. That's I actually forget that. I'm having one of those moments. Anyway, hope you're all comfortable enjoying the afternoon event, and we'll get underway. Don, take the stand.
All right, thank you everyone for being here, and thanks to the folks online on Zoom. My name is Salvatore Rosio, and and thank you to all the wonderful readers today, and thanks to Robert for producing this, putting this together. This is really great. This first poem by Dylan Thomas resonates with me because as we get older in life, there is artifact and scenery that we revisit, and if we allow it, it will evoke childhood or a retelling of the past, whether it be happy or sad, or both. So this is a poem in October. It was my 30th year to heaven, woke to my hearing from harbor and neighbor wood, and the mussel pool and the herring priested shore, the morning beckon with water praying and call of seagull and rook, and the knock of sailing boats on the net red wall, myself to set foot that second in the still sleeping town and set forth. My birthday began with the water birds and the birds of the winged trees flying my name above the thorns and the white horses, and I rose in rainy autumn and walked abroad in the shower of all my days. High tide and the herring dived when I took the road over the border, and the gates of the town closed as the town awoke. A springful of larks and a rolling cloud in the roadside bushes, brimming with whistling blackbirds and the sun of October, summery on the hill's shoulder. Here were fond climates and sweet singers suddenly come in the morning, where I wandered and listened to the rain ringing wind blow cold in the wood far away under me. Pale rain over the dwindling harbor and over the sea-wet church the size of a snail, with its horns through mist, and the castle brown as owls. But all the gardens of spring and summer were blooming in the tall tails beyond the border and under the lark-full cloud. There could I marvel my birthday away, but the weather turned around. It turned away from the blithe country and down the other air, and the blue altered sky streamed again with a wonder of summer, with apples, pears, and red currants. And I saw in the turning so clearly a child's forgotten mornings when he walked with his mother through the parallels of sunlight and the legends of the green chapels and the twice told fields of infancy, that his tears burned my cheeks and his heart moved in mine. These were the woods, the river, and sea, where a boy in the listening summertime of the dead whispered the truth of his joy to the trees and the stones and the fish in the tide. And the mystery sang alive, still in the water and singing birds. And there could I marvel my birthday away, but the weather turned around, and the true joy of the long dead child sang, burning in the sun. It was my 30th year to heaven, stood there then in the summer noon, though the town below lay leaved with October blood. Oh, may my heart's truth still be sung on this high hill in a year's turning. Thank you. That was one of my favorites. And the second piece, this is a shorter piece. It has a great rhyme scheme and meter, and I'll let this piece speak for itself. This is called On My Craft and Sewing Art. In my craft or sewing art, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed with all their griefs in their arms, I labor by singing light, not for ambition or bread, or the strut and trade of charms on the ivory stages, but for the common wages of their most secret heart. Not for the proud man apart from the raging moon I write on these spindrift pages, nor for the towering dead with their nightingales and psalms, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages, who pay no praise or wages, nor heed my craft or art. Thank you, everyone.
It's a little interesting. The next piece is a bit atypical of Thomas's work. You can decide whether it's melancholy or transcendent, or making some wry observation about his own ability to actually emote an abstraction. You might find an element of that in all. The piece is called The Force That Through the Green Fuse Drives the Flower. You'll, I've actually, I was speaking with friend Janet, and the last piece that we did, we mentioned how much Poe hated all the transcendentalists. He hated Emerson, he hated Thoreau, he hated their tree hugging, he hated Waldenbon, he hated everything, and Poe was a relentless. I'm afraid this is one of those pieces that Poe would have hated. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoy this reading. Force that through the green fuse drives the flower. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower drives my green age. That blasts the roots of trees is my destroyer. And I am dumb to tell the crooked road my youth is spent by the same wintry fever. The force that drives water through rocks drives my red blood. That drives the mouthing streams turns mine to wax. And I am dumb to mouth to my veins. That same mountain spring, the same mouth sucks. The hand that whirls the water in the pool stirs the sand. That ropes the blowing wind and hails my shroud sand. And I am dumb to tell the hanging man how of my clay is made the hangman fine. The lips of time leads to the fountainhead. Love drips and gathers, but the fallen blood shall conquer swords. And I am dumb to tell a weather's wind how time has ticked a heaven around the stars. And I am dumb to tell the lover's tune how at my sheet goes the same crooked worm. Young Thomas. Who's next? Oh, you. Actually, you got a double feature now. All right. Good luck, my friends.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
I do have a double feature. I will have some remarks in between the two. This poem is called When Once the Twilight Locks No Longer. When once the twilight locks no longer, locked in the long worm of my finger, nor dammed the sea that sped about my fist, the mouth of time sucked like a sponge, the milky acid on each hinge, and swallowed dry the waters of the breast. When the galactic sea was sucked and all the dry seabed unlocked, I sent my creature scouting on the globe. That globe itself of hair and bone, that, sewn to me by nerve and brain, had stringed my flask of matter to his rib. My fuses are timed to charge this heart. He blew like powder to the light and held a little Sabbath with the sun. But when the stars, assuming shape, drew in his eyes the straws of sleep, he drowned his father's magics in a dream. All issue armored of the grave, the red-haired cancer still alive, the cataracted eyes that filmed their claws. Some dead undid their bushy jaws, and bags of blood let out their flies. He had by heart the Christ-cross row of death. Sleep navigates the tides of time. The dry sargasso of the tomb gives up its dead to such a working sea. And sleep rolls mute above the beds where fish's food is fed the shades who periscope through flowers to the sky. When once the twilight screws were turned and mothered milk was stiff as sand, I sent my own ambassador to light. By trick or chance he fell asleep and conjured up a carcass shape to rob me of my fluids in his heart. Awake, my sleeper, to the sun, a worker in the morning town, and leave the poppy pickthank where he lies. The fences of the light are down, all but the briskest rider's throne, and worlds hang on the trees. Thank you. So I'm having the opportunity to read this poem today, not unexpectedly, but kind of unexpected. This particular poem brought me to Dylan Thomas, many, many years ago. When I was a younger man of mid-20s, it's a long, long time ago. I'm so old now, I should see the graying and whiting of my stringy appendages. I was an actor when I was in my early 20s. I don't know if I was a good one. That's not really important. The thing is that I was a performer, and I played music, and I did musicals, and I wrote poems, and I shouted them to people in open mics and all these things. But I had a very amazing opportunity to be in a musical that went over to the city of Edinburgh during what's called the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And if anyone knows that about the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, it's the largest theater festival in the world. It's a really big deal. When I say large, you can go there during festival season, which is basically the month of August. And there are a handful of different festivals on top of each other. And you could go there and there'll possibly literally be about 1,000 different types of performances a day. It's crazy, right? It's not, my point is saying it's overwhelming. And to show that I was in the selling out arena. So the point of that is that I'm demonstrating that I was at the top of my creative life, my creative performer life. I was the best of my performer self that I had ever been at 23, 24. And but at the same time, simultaneously, I was the worst person that I had ever been. Personally, I had made bad choices. I was sad. I was angry. I was resentful. I was dishonest, and I did a lot of damage to a lot of people emotionally. Now, I don't like saying that in front of audiences. Usually, I want to win you over. I want to lose you with my personal problems. But in my early 20s, I was not my best self. Still a young man. I was making bad choices. I was very selfish. The reason why I say all of that is because after the show was over, after it closed, and I took a vacation down to London, and I was about to go run off and see the rest of Europe. A trip that was going to go from Edinburgh for the month for theater stuff, and then Italy and France and Switzerland and all these things. I was in London, and I was with a traveling partner who resented me, and I resented them. And we were bouncing around London, seeing sights. And we ended up in a building called Westminster Abbey. And if you're not familiar with Westminster Abbey, it's probably one of the more important churchy type places in Great Britain, and maybe even the world, to be fair. I don't know, it's an argument. And I was kind of shuffled into a corner by my traveling partner, as if like to say, here, this is for you, go over there and leave me alone. Kind of like if like the wife has got the husband and says, go to the tool department and get out of my face while I take care of important things. So I ended up in a place called Poets Corner, and in Poets Corner in Westminster Abbey, it's the list of all of your entire high school and college English department reading list. There's Chaucer. I mean, there's too many lists, there's too many names, and either they're buried there or they have a little placard. At the time, I was a big Eliot man. T.S. Eliot, he's my guy. As I'm strolling through Westminster, I'm so full of emotion. It's so full of sadness and anger, but I'm also trying to congratulate myself on a job well done, and I have so much happening. As I'm walking around, I'm seeing the names of poets, and I'm seeing big writers. And on one of the placards was one of the stones written down. I saw the words Dylan Thomas, and this line caught my eye. It was a line from this poem. And as I'm sitting there looking at it, I see the words, time held me green and dying. Though I sang in my chains to the sea, I immediately felt this rush of feelings because I felt trapped in myself. I didn't want to talk about any of my feelings to them. I didn't want to admit to it. I was so guilty and so sad and also so jubilant and happy. And I didn't know what to do, and I felt so trapped inside myself. Until suddenly I could see the sign that I sang in my chains like the sea, and I suddenly just felt this burst of feelings come out, and I literally started crying in church. I was trying to be quiet about it. I was muffing up, I could just hear myself going, and the tears were down. And I was slightly relieved, that you could be there, because here, I didn't know the context of the rest of the poem, but I knew that line meant something, that everything was coming ripping out of my chest, up into the sky, hitting the roof, and it brought me to this guy's work. So let me read to you Fern Hill. And thank you for letting me tell my little story of success and selfishness. Fern Hill. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle star, time let me hail and climb golden in the heydays of his eyes, and honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns. And once below a time I lordly had the trees and leaves, trail with daisies and barley, down the rivers of the windfall light. And as I was, green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden, I was huntsman and herdsman. The calves sang to my horn. The foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath ran slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely. The hayfields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys. It was air and plain, lovely and watery, and fire green as grass. And nightly, under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among the stables, the night jars flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to awake, and the farm, like a wanderer, white with the dew, come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining. It was Adam and Maiden. The sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that Thursday. So it must have been after the birth of this simple light, in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise. And honor among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new-made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky blue trades that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs. Before the children green and golden followed him out with grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb white days that time would take me up to the swallow thronged loft by the shadow of my hand. In the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep, I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm, forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea. Thank you for letting me read that word.
So we have our little psychoanalytic piece. We're now at the epilogue. And I hope that you've had the opportunity of hearing all of us do the spoken word, that perhaps you were able to inhabit Dylan Thomas's words, bring them into you as we try to express them back to you. I'm going to read Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. It's a villanelle, which is a very interesting structure of poetry. It was begun in France during the Renaissance, and it's a very rigid structure. Robert told me he tried to write one once, and succeeded, he did, but it was an arduous task. It consists of 19 lines, and Shakespeare's sonnets are 14 lines. This is 19 lines. There are 5 stanzas of 3, 1 stanza of 4. And what's characteristic about it is that it has 2 refrains, and the refrains rhyme. The first one is Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. The other one is Rage, Rage Against the Night. And they take turns in the poem, except in the last stanza where they end the poem itself. Dylan Thomas was obsessed with death, and he tries in this poem to describe how different men deal with the life-death struggle. And that's why I'm referring to this as an epilogue, because tonight, this afternoon, we began, and now we're at the end. And this poem is saying that when you get to the ending, don't go gentle into that ending. There's another aspect of this that's very interesting, just for a minute. I think Dylan Thomas had certain questions with respect to this. He wrote the poem in 1951. It was a year before his father died. There's the last stanza deals with his father facing death. And the irony of this is that the poem was published in 1952 when his father died. Thomas dies at the age of 39, half my age, by the way. And his unborn son died at that time, and 3 of his friends died as well. So this is a pretty emotional poem, giving us Dylan Thomas's guidance for how to deal with the end. Do not go gentle into that good night. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Lo, wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words have forked no lightning. They do not go gentle into that. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in the day. Rage, rage against the dying wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that group. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears and pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Well, as Marshall well noted, as he started off with prologue, a few more notes about quite a talented poet. I think I am more fascinated with the selection. A little bit more fascinated by the interview. What caused the man, what caused the compulsive behavior. And it certainly was compulsive behavior. Yeah, some of it was cultivated for the purposes of marketing himself as this rake who had a talent for the written and spoken word. But there was something else going on. And I think you hit a little bit upon it. You know, the man had some thoughts about death. He'd seen a lot of death. He'd seen a lot of unnecessary death. And it clearly haunted him. He had trouble breaking through this. Anyway, amusing little anecdote, not very nice. But as he was on his last speaking tour here in America, he went on quite a bender and ended up with double pneumonia at what is now St. Vincent's Hospital. And his speaking agent for the tour thought, this isn't looking good. You know, he's not going to make Chicago. You know, he thought it wise to call him. Now, there was certainly some tension there between husband and wife. She flies over from England, gets off the plane at what is now LaGuardia, gets a cab into the city, where then goes to the hotel where the speaking agent told her to go, calls up his room and goes, well, has the bastard actually died yet? She really, so don't judge her too harshly. She did not know how sick he really was. Back in the day, what you received was a telegram. And what you received was, he's not doing so well, it'd be important if you came. And that's all it said. And she came. She did care for him, but there was a lot of tension between the two of them. He was a horrible binge drinker. And as much as he used it for, you know, kind of bolstering his image, it created a lot of damage in his family. Anyway, I want to thank all of you, especially those of you online who are patient. It doesn't always necessarily go so quickly or so smoothly online. Especially those of you who agreed to come out and thank you. I hope you have found it educational. I hope you found it entertaining. I have been doing this this is actually going into my 6th year doing this in different venues. And the next fact may astound you. Maybe you won't, I don't know. Certainly everyone who spoke today has some natural talent with words, but we only did 2 read-throughs of this together as an ensemble. And generally that's how the program goes. I don't tell them what to say in terms of their personal commentary for the pieces. I encourage them to do their own research. Generally, the first read-through is just one on tone and inflection, timing and beat, and just some tips and tricks. The second is just kind of a dress rehearsal, which we had last Thursday. Thank you for showing up for those that did. And then we come out here and we perform for you and try to bring the artist out into the open for you to experience. I'd like to call up all the readers right now. First, I'll start with Marshall. Irene, Ella, James, Janine, Sal, just front of rail, we're fine, we'll figure this out later.
We didn't rehearse this.
Yeah, this part's got a real short trip. We're gonna end the program in a moment. But one of the biggest rewards that I have is it is just absolutely amazing. And I think most speakers would agree, but it is absolutely amazing where these people start on their first read. Nervous, not sure if they got it right, and they get a little coaching. Better. So you all did incredible today. I'm deeply grateful to be in your company and for what you brought to what was arguably probably one of the hardest books to bring out and bring forth. So a big hand to this ensemble. As soon as I end the program on Zoom, we've asked that you all stand up here. We'll find a good configuration for taking a picture. And Rachel, would you do the honor of taking a picture? Okay. Again, thank you so much for attending today, and we hope you come to one of our next ones or get brave enough to speak at one of our next ones. If you want to get on a email list to see me afterwards, they'll add you to the list so you're notified. And so ends the program.